Today, Islam is thought of as a highly conservative ideology. However, in the time of its founding in the 7th century, Islam was seen as highly progressive by many people. Before Islam, slaves were property without rights. The owners could do with slaves as they wished. But under Islam, the life of a slave enormously improved. Slaves were seen as human beings, with a certain religious and social status which allowed them some legal rights. This was far more progressive than some forms of slavery well into the 19th century. Ironically, he improved the lives of women as well. Women were given the right to inherit under Islamic law, to divorce, and to life itself. You see, before Islam, baby girls were allowed to be murdered if the father wanted a son instead of a daughter. But all of this was not to say women were equal, however. Sure, the Quran says that men and women are equal, but women were and still are very much controlled by their male protector. And men maintain guardianship over women and can beat the women under his protection if the man feels it justified. Interestingly, however, the practice of women veiling themselves came centuries after Muhammad's death. The veil was impractical for working, so a woman who would be veiled all the time showed that she didn't need to work, as her husband provided for all her needs. Islam changed marriage as well. Before Islam, a man could marry as many women as he could. Under Islam, however, a man was limited to only 3 wives. Which brings us to the matter of Muhammad's wives, of which he had 13 to 15, depending on which sources you believe. Muhammad's first wife was the love of his life, but she was around 20 years older than Muhammad, so he became a widower at 49. For as long as he was with her, she was Muhammad's only wife. But upon her death, Muhammad took on over a dozen new wives. Some he took for political reasons, cementing alliances through marriage. Others he took on for humanitarian reasons, such as the wives of Muslims killed in battle and had been left without a protector. And okay, I guess it's time to finally talk about the elephant in the room. And that's Muhammad's youngest wife, Aisha. According to traditional sources, Aisha was only 6 years old when she married Muhammad. But they did not consummate the marriage until she reached puberty at the age of 9. It is important to note that at the time it wasn't that uncommon to marry at such a young age and to consummate such a marriage at the beginning of puberty. But puberty generally started at a later age, and even at the time this marriage was highly controversial. When people call Muhammad a pedophile, this is what people usually refer to. Lastly, I want to talk about the historicity of Muhammad. Did he actually exist or not? Now, this might seem like a weird topic for the 5th episode in this series, but this series is not fundamentally about that. This series is about teaching what Islamic history looked like according to Islam. When looking at it from this perspective, the historicity of Muhammad is not that important. Muslims pray 5 times per day because they believe God commanded them to pray 5 times a day. Whether it is true or not, the practitioners of Islam still pray 5 times per day because they believe it. When looking at it from this lens, what is more important is the story around which this religion revolves and how that story affects the world. When examining whether Muhammad is an actual historical person or not, let's look at various historical sources. There is of course the Quran itself, but just as the Lord of the Rings doesn't prove the existence of Middle-earth, so too does the Quran not prove the existence of Muhammad. So instead, let's look at non-Islamic sources from that time period. And honestly, there are not that many. While there are certainly mentions of Muslim conquests throughout Arabia, there is no actual mention of Muhammad himself during his lifetime. All sources are either Islamic sources or written decades or even centuries after his death. So did he exist? Well, we simply don't know. It is quite likely a man named Muhammad existed around that time, although not certain. And it appears likely that some of his deeds are exaggerated, and he may have been less important than Islamic sources point him out to be. Some speculating that he was raised to prophethood after his death. But in conclusion, there simply hasn't been enough research done into the topic, at least that I can find anyway. No peer-reviewed scientific study has thus far been conducted concerning the topic. So if you study history or theology, write a research article about the topic. You might very well be the first. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. My next video will be the final episode of the Muhammad series, where we will talk about the last years of his life. If you want to see those and other episodes as soon as they come out, press the subscribe button. I upload a video every 2 weeks.